Welcome to Computer Science Principles. Follow along with the curriculum at bjc.edc.org. Unit 3, Lists. Lab 2, Page 1, the Contact List app. Okay, so we visit the curriculum, we click on Unit 3, Lists, Programming Lab 2, Nesting Lists, and this time, Page 1 is the Contact List app. So all cell phones have some kind of contacts list. In this lab, you will create a contacts app yourself. So for you to do, load this starter version of the app and then press the Add Contact button on the stage and read the script to understand how it works. Each new contact is a list. Item 1 is the name and item 2 should be the phone number. So the list of contacts is a list of lists. So let's take a look. Okay, so here is the project loaded. We were told to click on Add Contact and then try and read through it and figure out how this thing actually works. So all of this script here is associated with the Add Contact sprite, which is right here. And then the clear list also has some script, some code attached to that sprite. So let's click on Add Contact. So we see that this set of blocks is glowing right now. And it says type the person's name. Now I'm not seeing in what's glowing, I'm not seeing it where it says type the person's name, so maybe that's contained in one of these other blocks. So let's type a name, and then it says click here to enter a new contact. Well, I see that the variable has changed. I see that it's entered Matt but no phone number. So anyway, let's click another one. You can press enter or you can press it. So it's now added that in front, but again, no telephone number. And so we could keep adding. So each new contact is being added to column A, but without a phone number. Okay, so I guess that's one of the bugs in this program so far. So it says when I am clicked set contact list, which is this variable here, which is a list. We can see that over here. Here is the variable contact list. So it's setting that variable to all of this stuff. And this stuff includes what it already was. And then the new contact in front. Now this is some type of custom block, so we've got to take a look inside there. But it's setting the contact list to whatever the list originally was. So that would have been all the contents of it before a new contact was added, and then this goes in front of it, and so that's what it's being set to. And then it's then saying click here to enter a new contact, which is this speech bubble right here. So let's take a look inside Get New Contact. So Get New Contact is reporting a list which includes two items, the get name and the get phone. So we now need to take a look at inside get name and inside get phone. So get name is the answer to the question type person's name. So it's going to ask this question when we click, and then whatever the answer is going in the first item of this list that is going to be reported, and that will eventually go back into this in front of the list. So get name seems to be working. It's asking a question, grabbing the answer, and using it as the first item. Now get phone is just reporting, so it's just holding this value as well. Phone number doesn't work yet, and that's what's in each of these items up here. Phone number doesn't work yet. Okay, let's go back and look at the other stuff. Okay, so it says press the Add Contact button, and so we saw how all of that worked. Then number 3, fix the get phone block so that it works similarly to get name. Okay, so get name asks this question and then reports that. So if I duplicate this and use this over here, but instead of asking type person's name, we could say, what is their phone number? What is their phone number? So let's apply that. Let's press OK and OK. Let's see how this works right now. So if now I click on add contact, it says type person's name. So that's the first question being asked. And this is all coming from this piece right here. Answer to the question, type person's name. So it's asking this question, then it's waiting. And it's waiting for the answer to fill this space, and then it can report it and send it into the bigger script, which is here for GetName. So let's say I want this to be called Barry. Okay, check. Now it says, what is their phone number? So now it's managing this piece right here. It's asking this question, what is their phone number? So let's put in a number, 347 123 4567. So let's say that is their number. And so now we see the contact form, the contact list is keeping both of those items of the list, Barry and the telephone number. So if we do it again, Anna, let's check telephone number, and that goes in there as well. So it looks like we fixed the get phone. So let's go back. Okay, now it says clear your contact list and add a few more made up people to make sure everything works. So we kind of did that, but we can clear it easy enough. So we want to set contact list to 0. So, well, not to 0, but to an empty list. So I'm going to close this list, change this to contact list. So if I just click this, it's now cleared my contact list. So that's my clearing button right now. And it did say add a couple more, so let's add a few more back. All right, so let's add one more. All right, so now 2 contacts have been added to the list. Next, it says write a reporter phone number of that takes any part of a person's name as an input and reports that person's phone number or not found if the name is not in the contacts list. You will need string blank contains something, which lets you find out whether one string, a contact's name in the list, contains another string, a name or part of a name. B, keep items such that, and then the keep operator here from the list, which filters the list for only the items that make the function true. And then C, empty list, which returns true if the list is empty and false otherwise. All right, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so the first reporter block that we need to create is a phone number of blank. So I'm going to make a block. It's a reporter. I'm going to keep it in other. It's going to be phone number of, and then I'm going to call it blank, but we're going to change that in a moment. Okay, so blank is going to become an input variable that is going to be text. Okay, so right now I'm just going to apply it, press OK. I'm going to grab this onto the scripting area. But now we need to think, well, at the moment this is going to do nothing because there's no code inside there. It's just reporting blank all the time. So we now need to figure out how to take some letters in this blank space, in this little field, search for them in our list for Sarah or Matt or whoever else is on here, and see if those letters are contained in the first item of each of these entries right here. So let's go back to the advice that they suggest. They said string blank contains blank, which lets you find out whether one string, a contact's name in the list, contains another string, a name or part of a name. So we've got this right here, which is string Abraham Lincoln contains ink, and it's returning true. So let's grab this, duplicate it, put it here. Now this blank is the same as looking for link. So if this is true, then, right, so if this is going to be true, then we need it to report the telephone number. Let's just check. That takes any part of a person's name as input and reports that person's telephone number. Okay, so it looks like we have an if-else situation. So inside of control, let's grab the if-else. Now, if the first thing is true, now I'm going to put this here for now, but we're not just searching Abraham Lincoln. We need to search every single name in this list. So let's keep that in mind. In fact, let me just hold that here. Every single name in list. So if the string, every single name in list, and we're going to have to try and reference that and find that, contains whatever the few letters that the user inputs into this block, if it contains that, then report the telephone number. So I'm just typing telephone number, but obviously we don't just want it to say telephone number. We want it to actually find that telephone number. Else report, so I'm gonna, if it's not found, else I need to report, what did they say? Else I need to report, where does it say? It's not found. I need to report not found. Okay. So not found. All right, so that's our first look at this. It's not going to work correctly, but it's our first way of trying to get a mental handle on what this thing is trying to ask us to do. So the next piece of advice that they give us in number 5 is 5b. And it shows you this keep items such that blank from list, which filters the list for only the items that make the function true. So it's almost like you take a list and it changes by the rule that you give it when you ask it to keep the items such that something is true. So that could be very useful right now. Okay, so I changed this a little. Instead of the word blank, I'm going to call it search text, which is going to allow us to conceptualize this a little better. I'm going to get rid of blank. Search text is going to be what goes into this box right here. So I'm just going to rename that field. And so the string is going to be the names up here. But we need to think about this in terms of keep. So if I duplicate this and bring it here, so we're keeping items on this list, contact list, that match a certain rule. So when we think about this, this string predicate seems pretty important. So keep items such that this rule is true, that Sarah or Matt or whatever is in column A here, whatever is item 1 of each of these lists. So this contact list, we must remember, is a list of lists. The contact list, the primary bucket number 1 contains Sarah and Sarah's telephone number. That's a list. 2 items are in that list. Primary bucket number 2 contains Matt and that telephone number. That's a second primary bucket. And so this is a list of lists. So we must make sure that we're only keeping items on this list, that we're reducing it down to hopefully 1, but there could be several people with the same search text within their name. So if I search for A, then both Sarah and Matt should be returned because they both contain the letters A. But if I search for AH, then only Sarah should be returned because her name is the only one that contains AH. Or if it was AT, then it should just return Matt. So I need to check this first item of each of these lists. So as soon as we start trying to grapple with this and understand that this is a list of lists, we need to understand that item 1 of these lists that gets returned must contain the search text. So let's just think about this one more time. We've got keep items such that the string that's being returned, which in this case is in each of these list items each primary bucket contains a list. So such that the string and the item 1 of that list, which is the first name, and we're leaving this list blank, because what's going to happen is that this keep function is going to put in each item, which in this case is a list, because it's a list of lists, is going to put in each item, each list into this box, and then it's going to explore what is item 1 of that list. So in the first case, it's Sarah, and it's going to decide, does it contain the search text? And if so, keep it. If not, drop it. So this is going to go through each of the first names and check it against the search text and make a new list that hopefully has some members. And if not, then it's an empty list. So that's one other thing that we might need. If the list is empty, then we're going to report not found. So if empty, report not found. So that's also important, right? So we could even put that here. If empty, report not found, but then we need to run this right here. We need to put this here, and there you see that we've created a new list. So when we're checking for if the list is empty, what is this list, you might ask? Well, we're not checking if contact list is empty, because here it's not. That's not running any rule. What we're checking is if this list is empty. So when we use the keep function, it's creating a new list, and now we can check if it's empty, say not found, else we need to report the telephone number. So that would be the next step. Okay, so far if this is an empty list, whatever is returned after it runs this check, then we know that that contact is not found in the list, and we don't need to report a number because there is no number, so we just report not found. Else what we need to do is we need to find out within this list, we need to find out what is the telephone number. So these returned values here are everybody whose name contains this search text. So if it's ATT in here, then we know that Matt contains AT&T, ATT, and so we then want to return the 347 number. So how do we do that? We can't just report this whole list. What we have to do, because reporting this list, let's watch what happens. It's now going to report the entire list. So it's definitely knows Matt and not Sarah, and it knows the telephone number. But this list, we need to report this second value, the item 2 of this list. But there's still kind of a problem, because even if we say report item 2 of this, watch what happens. If we apply it, reporting item 2, it's looking like it's reporting blank. So what we need to remember is that when it reports a list, we need to see that the primary bucket number 1 is a list. So we need to report the second item of this first item, which is a list. So even though there's only one item in this list, Matt and this, there's only one item in the primary bucket for this list, we need to tell it, choose item 1, and then choose item 2 of that. So we need 2 of these things. So item 1 of this list, that's going to return the Matt and the telephone number. And then we need item 2 of that. So if we apply this right now and we press this, it's now working. It's now returning the 347 number for Matt when we search for ATT. If we search for RAH, which is the last 3 letters of Sarah, it's now returning Sarah's number. Or if we search for ARA, it's now returning Sarah's number. If we search for S, it's returning Sarah's number. If we search for M, it's returning Matt's number. So far this script is pretty good. There are a few exceptions though which kind of break this, and that is what happens if you search for A. A is contained in both of these names. And so what do you think will happen? Will it return both numbers? Well, in fact, it just returns the first value that it sees, because we've told it, even if this inner list contains multiple items, Sarah and Matt, both of those lists, it's just returning the first one and then the item 2 of that. So therefore, it will only return Sarah because she's the first one in the list that's being returned. So if I apply this, press OK, so far this is working. If I type in MA and then 1T, it's just finding the number for Matt. Okay, so in number 6, it says when someone calls you, the phone company sends only the calling number to your phone, but it does not send the person's name. But if the number is in your contact list, then your phone figures out the name and shows it to you. So you'll want a block called name from number with an input, and that should search the phone for the phone number and reports the contact's name. So let's get started. So I already started to create this custom block. I've said name from number. Then also this tell variable input, what I did is I selected to have it as a number. Now, if you've got dashes or something else inside your numbers here, then that could be a problem. So you may want to just have it as text. But then if you search for a number without dashes and it's not here, then that's also a problem. So part of field validation is a big part of CS, computer science, and that's always something to be mindful of. Anyways, for now, I've kept it as telephone number, and we're searching for a name after inputting a telephone number. So this is going to be very similar to the code that we had in phone number of Matt and phone number of blank. So if I edit this and I come over here, and I'm just going to duplicate all of this stuff and drop it in here and then close it up. So now let's think, how is this different? How is name from number different than number from name? Well, we are still searching for and creating a list. So keep items such that the string item 1 of contact list, when each of these go through, we're only keeping the items such that it contains search text. Well, we're no longer looking for search text. Our variable is now telephone number. And instead of it being item 1, we're now focusing on item 2. So I'm going to type in a 2 here. So we're running through each of the contact list items, which are lists, and we're looking for item 2 of each of those lists. So item 2 here, item 2 here, and so on. And if it contains the telephone number, then we know to keep them. Now, maybe we want to do a contains, but maybe it has to be more exact. If we've got a telephone number that's coming in from the phone company, then we need it to identically match the name that we have in our contact list. So if I go into operators, instead of contains, I really want it to equal. So if item 2 of list equals the telephone number, so that should really be the rule. If this is true, then keep it. And if all of those things are empty, we are to say not found. Else, we need to report the name. So first of all, let's get another equals, because now we're looking for if item 2 of the list equals the telephone number. Let's get rid of the string contains. Now, if we look in the inner parentheses here, keep items such that item 2 of the list equals tel. Now, keeping item 1 is going to return the primary bucket number 1 of this list, which is a list. And then instead of looking at item 2, which is a telephone number, we need it to return the name, which is item 1. So that's pretty much what we need to do. Now, one of the things in Snap is if we don't use if we duplicate and bring in a report block, sometimes it doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to type in not found. So I'm going to use the report block that they gave, and I'm duplicating from this one. I don't want to reuse the ones that I duplicated. So even all this stuff that's being reported, I want to get rid of the old and bring in the new. Just sometimes it's a little buggy. So all I've done is replace those report blocks with fresh ones from within this custom block. And if I apply this right now, press OK, name from number is here. So now if I try and search for a number that's not there, let's just press a few keys and then press this, it says not found, which is as expected. If I leave it blank and press it, not found. Okay, there's no one with a blank phone number. If I search for Mark's telephone number, which is 123456789, then it should return Mark, and it does. And if I search for Claire's number, which is 45678923, 334, then now it should return Claire. And it says not found. So let's see, what did I do wrong? 4567 892 334. Doesn't look like I did anything wrong. Let me just expand this. So 456789 2334. Did I put a space at the end? Still saying not found. So one thing that I can do is I can clear the list. Are you sure? Yes. Now let's add some more, but let's put, like, I don't know why this is happening, but let's try it again. So let's put Sam. Let's make his number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's include Bob and number 67890. And let's add one more, Tina, number 451278. Okay, so now if I search for this number, obviously not found. If I search for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I get Sam, which is correct. If I search for 67890, then I'm hoping I get Bob, which I do. If I search for Tina, which is 451278, then hopefully Tina's name. So far it does work. Must have just been a little bug with Claire. So there it is. Phone number of works, but now Matt isn't in there. So if I change it for Sam, then I do get Sam's number. If I type in SA, I still get Sam's number. If I type in NA, Tina, I get Tina's number. And name a phone number from 67890 now pulls the correct name for that number. Okay, so now is a good time to save your work. Make sure you keep saving within Snap. Number 7, our starter version of the app uses a single text string to hold a person's entire name. This is fine for displaying the name on the screen, but makes it hard to display a list of all contacts sorted by last name. So we really want to keep the last name separate from the first name. Modify the GetName block so it asks separately for first names and for last names, and then reports a list of the two answers. Check to make sure that adding a new contact does what you expect. Okay, so we basically need to take the GetName and have it ask for first name and last name, and then report a list of two items. So let's go back. Okay, so the way that most of our brains work is we think, well, it needs to ask two questions. What's the first name and what's the last name? But in order to solve this, we almost need to think of this backwards. What is it that we need it to do? Well, we need it, the custom block GetName, we need it to report a list. So therefore, if we come over to list, drag this in, we need it to report a list with two things. So I'm going to put this in there. It's reporting a list. The first is answer to the question first name. And the second thing is the answer to the question last name. If we apply that and press OK, now keep in mind GetName is used within the action on add contacts script right here. It's used in get new contact. GetName is right here. So that's going to be inside this report is going to be the answers to the two questions, first name and last name, that is within GetName, and so that's a list within this list. So let's give it a shot right now. If we stop everything, start it all back up, press on add contact, it says first name, so let's just say Bob, last name, Jones, what is their phone number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now you'll see that this form, this list, contact list, has inside here has a first name and a last name within item 1 of this 2-item list at the top. Whereas Tina, Bob, and Sam, they were all there historically from a previous version of this add contact script. So what I might want to do is I might want to clear the list. Let's say yes. Now I might want to add the contact again. So Sam Smith, what is their phone number? 123456. Okay, so now they are. First name and last name are both contained here within a list within this first list. I could add another contact. 67890. Okay, so it's collecting telephone numbers, and it's also collecting the first and last names within a list within item 1 of each of these lists. So you've got lists inside of lists inside of lists. Okay, it now says clear your contact list and add a few entries. So we've just done that. Now C, write 2 reporters that take a contact as an input and report the name as a text string in 2 different orders. So name display form, it wants it to say, it wants to choose a random person from contact list and display it as first name, last name. So let's take a look. First name, last name. So name display form. So I'm going to create this, make a block, name display form, and then we could do input, whatever that is. This is a reporter block. It's an operator. Okay. Let's say input. Let's just say that it is text. Okay, so we need it to report something. So for this to work, we want, what did they say? Let's just skip back. We need item random of, so it's choosing a random item from the contact list. Okay, so that's going to be our input on the outside of this custom block. So it's going to grab a random item. Okay, and then let's say it chooses the first one, which up here is Harry Jones. Then we need it to report the first name space last name. So what we need to do is we need to look at item 1 of the returned list. So it's gonna, this is gonna give us a list. Item random, so item 1, 2, 3, 4 of contact list is going to give us a random item, which is a list. Keep that in mind, it's returning a list. So we then, let's say we're giving this first item, we need to look at item 1 of whatever is returned, of the input, which is a list, item 1 of that input, and that gives us both the names. And then both their names is a list. That's right here. This is a list. Item 1 is going to provide us with the whole thing. It's not providing us with Harry, it's providing us with the whole thing. So if we needed Harry, we need to then say item 1 of that is going to contain the phrase Harry if this one was chosen. And then if I duplicate this, I then need to choose item 2 of this to get the last name. And what I'm really doing is I am reporting. Now I could use join, but then I would need to put a space in there as well. Or if I choose join words, it's going to know to put a space. So I'm going to put this here. And then if I move this over, stretch it out a little, put this here. This doesn't need me to include a space because it knows their words, and that should work. So if I apply this right now, press OK. I'm going to go find this at the bottom, name in display form. And let's just take a quick look back. It said item random of contact list. So item random of contact list. That's choosing a random item, and so far there's only 2. But whatever is being returned, let's say it's 1, that is a list. So let's give this a shot. If I press it, it now says Harry Jones. If I press it again, so there's only 2 items, so if I press it a few times, there we do see Sam Smith, so it is randomly choosing this. So if I add some more contacts, so Matt Hill, 67543. So now I've got 3 contacts in there. So eventually we should see Matt Hill. There he is. Sam Smith, Harry Jones. So it is randomly choosing it. Next, name sorting form should be Obama, comma, Barack. So last name, comma, space, and then Barack, and then first name. So if I go back, name sorting form. So custom block, name sorting form. Okay, and then input. I could call it input. Let me just call it in for now. Don't want to call it the same thing. So operator, reporter, okay. In becomes an input type that is going to be text. So I need it to report. Let's just go through this again. So it's getting a list. A list is going to end up coming in here. I now need to look at item 1 of this list, and then the first thing that I need is the last name. So that's going to be item 2 of this. So that's going to bring in my last name. I then need to join that. So this time, instead of join words, I'm just going to use join. So it's going to be last name. Then I need a comma and a space. And then I need to put in the first name. So if I duplicate this, drop it in there, and then put in the first name. So if I open this up so we can see it, so I'm reporting the joining of these 2 things, well really 3 things. I've got a comma space in the middle. This gives me item 1 of whatever this list is, and then we're looking at which is a list, and then we're looking at item 2 of that, which is going to be the last name, and then we are doing comma space and then the first name. So let's press apply and OK. We can go grab this block right here, and then let's just duplicate this, drop it in. So sorting form is now giving us last name, comma space, first name, and it seems to be working fine. Okay, now it says check whether your phone number of blank and name from number blank blocks still work. Use your name display form selector to fix any problems. You will soon make more improvements to this app after addressing the idea of abstract data types, which you'll need when we return to this contact app. So if I go back, it's asking us to check this. Now at the moment we're getting these errors, and that's because the first item here now contains lists, whereas before it was just a name. It was just Bob or it's just Sarah, but now there's a list. So now we kind of have to fix all of this stuff. Okay, so I just cleared my contact list and I added a couple new entries. So there's 2 items that are in contact list. In the first item, it's a list, and in the first primary bucket of that list, there's first name, last name, Tom Jones. That's a list inside there, followed by Tom's telephone number. In the second item, there's a list, that's Bob Smith, and then also Bob's telephone number. So to edit the phone number of text, we need to try and figure out, well, what are we really looking for? At the moment, it's not working because it's looking for item 1 of the entry that's pulled back in a list. Well, item 1 of each entry is now a list. So this item 1 of we can't use, and this item 1 of we can't use. But what we should be checking for search text to see where this lives, or if the thing that we're looking for to check if it contains this search text is really first name space last name. So that comes from what we have over here, the display form of the name. Now previously we were inputting a random item from this contact list, but we don't want to do a random item. We basically want this to check as a string, to check each string from the contact list, the display name form, to see if it contains this. So this is basically going to put entry 1 of the contact list in there, find out the first name space last name, which in the first instance would be Tom space Jones, and see if Tom space Jones contains any of that search text. And then after that, if it does, it will keep it on the list. Otherwise, it will check Bob space Smith, because that's the second entry, and see if it contains any of the search text. If it does, it will stay on the list. If no items are on the list, it's going to return empty and then report not found. So we need to do the same thing, duplicate for the second part of this as well, and see if it contains search text. And this is going to report item 2 of this, which is going to be the telephone number. So if I press OK and apply, now if I check for this telephone number, if I check for the phone number of NA, there's nothing found because none of these names have NA. But if I search for Tom and press it, we've now got Tom's number. Or if I search for Smith and press it, then it's going to return Bob Smith's number. If I search for M space J, now that would be part of the Tom Jones string because Tom space Jones has M space J. If I press it, it returns his telephone number. So this looks like it's all working fine. Okay, so now to fix the name from number, at the moment this number is there in the list. If I click it, it's not returning the name, it's returning a list containing both names. So if I go into this, there's a couple of ways to fix it. The first is to think, well, instead of reporting this whole thing, which is a list, I need to do the item 1 of this list would be the first name. So if I go into here and choose item 1 of this, that would contain the first list. Now I know it's a lot of items of, but in the first case, this is keeping a list of items that have this telephone number. So that returns a list of one item, which is a list. So keep item 1 is now holding this value where we have a first and a last name. So item 1 of that is going to give us this whole thing. And then item 1 of that is going to give us Tom. So if I just put this in here, press apply and OK, when I press this, it's actually giving us Bob because that's Bob's number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is Bob's number. So if I wanted it to return Bob Smith, when I go back in here, edit, what I would need to do is duplicate this and now look for the second value of this. So I would have to put in a 2 there. And then I would have to join these two things. And because we want a space in between them, we can choose join words. And then if I pull this out, put in the join words, this is going to be the first name. This is going to be the second name. So if I apply and hit OK, and now check this out, we've now got Bob Smith is being returned. Bob Smith. And so that's working. Or if I try the other number, 09876, and then press, we've now got Tom Jones is being returned as well. So that seems to be working. The curriculum has been brought to you by Beauty and Joy of Computing in association with UC Berkeley, also the National Science Foundation, EDC, and the SET program at the New York City Department of Education.